Ang pagbasa ng previous past board exams sa engineering ay importante yan kasi nakakatulong yan sa pagpasa ng board exam. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Ang tutorial natin ngayon is about the distance traveled by two trains. Pero bago ang lahat, magbigay muna ako ng isang question na sasagutin ninyo dito sa chat box ngayon sa Premiere. Tapos, ang first three, kukuha lang ako ng first three na manalo. Ang first, second, and third. First, will get 1,000 pesos. Second, 10 watch hours. And third, 5 watch hours. Pero kung maraming makasagot ng tama, iraraffle ko yan at kukuha ako ng 3 winners. Tapos, i-announce ko sa susunod na premiere ang mga winners. Tara, samahan niyo ako sa classroom. Two trains are running in the same direction on 2 parallel tracks. The trains are 100 meter and 120 meter respectively, and running at 100 km per hour and 250 km per hour. If the tail end of the first train is 800 meter ahead of the front end of the second train, determine the time required for the front end of the second train to reach the tail end of the first train. Now, to solve this first problem, we have this diagram here, the sketch for the 2 tracks. This is this one, the first track and the second track, and we have this second train and the first train, and they are the tail end, that this is the end of the first train, which is equal to 800 meter from the front end of the second train. So 800 meter ang nila, distansya. Front end of the second to the tail end of the first train. Now dito, because we have the given velocities of V1 and V2, now here it is. We have kilometer per hour and we have the meter. So we have to change this kilometer or meter to kilometer or kilometer to meter. Better we will change this one to meter per second. Now, velocity 1 therefore is equal to 100 km per hour, which is equal to 100 times 1,000, because 1 kilometer is equal to 1,000 meter. So multiply by 1,000 divided by the hour, which is 1 hour times 60 minutes times 60 seconds. So therefore, V1 is equal to 27.78 meter per second. And for V2, which is 250 km per hour, is also equal to 250 times 1,000 meter divided by 1 times 60 times 60 is equal to 69.44 meter per second. Yun ang mga equivalent nila to meter per second. Now, here we have to find the time required for the front end of the second, to reach the tail end. So the front end to reach the tail end of the first train. So yung train travel from here to here to reach the tail end of the first train. So we have to find the time. Now, of course, velocity is equal to the distance over the time. Therefore, for distance 1 is equal to the velocity times the time. So here, we have to substitute the value of V1, which is equal to 27.78. Of course, multiply by the time, because if you will multiply this one, distance therefore is equal to the velocity times the time. So the velocity 1, which is 27.78 times the time, this is the distance 1. And D2, which is equal to 250 km per hour, 69.44 meter per second, multiply by the time, that is the distance 2, which this is the one. From this one to here, we designate this one as a distance 1, for the travel for the first train going to this end. And D2 is the distance for the second train to travel from the starting point to the end point. Now, of course, we designate as D2, and the other one is D1. From this one, because the first train is ito ang starting point niya at 800 meters. Yan ang starting point niya. Therefore, from this diagram, you can see that D2, which is the distance 2, is equal to 800 meter plus 120, because this one, you know, the length of the first train is 120 meter. It is written here 120 meter. This the length of the first train is 120 meters. So it is plus 120 plus D1, which is the distance of the this car first train to travel from the original point to the end point, is of course supposed to be here only, but we have until the front end. So D1 minus the length of the first train, which is equal to 120 meter. So minus para dito, hanggat dito na lang. See, the dito is hanggat dito lang. So mina-minus lang yung 120 length ng ano, kasi hanggat ang tanong dito till the tail end of the first train. So the end of the first train, not the front, but the tail end dito sa likod. So i-minus natin ang length ng train, which is 120 meter. Kaya yan ang resulta, 800 plus D1 plus 120, 120 the length of the car, the train, plus D1 minus the 120. Therefore, to substituting the value of D2, which is equal to 69.44 times time, so 69.44 times the time is equal to 800 plus, because 120 and 120 minus and plus, you can cancel that one. So what is left is D1. D1 is equal to 27.78 times the time. Now, simplifying this one, the time therefore required for the front end of the second train to reach the tail end of the first train is equal to 19.2 seconds. Yun ang time, oras ng itong second train na makarating dito hanggat sa likod ng first train. 19.2 seconds the time. By the way guys, bago nga pala tayo mag-solve ng question number 2, ipaalaala ko lang sa inyo na ang question ko na binigay nung unang bago tayo nag-solve ng problem is ganito. What is the name? Anong pangalan nitong line na to from the center to the midpoint of the side of the hexagon? This, or it can be like this, can be like this, can be like that. Basta line from the center to the midpoint of the any side of the hexagon. Anong pangalan ng line na to? From the center to this or from this one to this. Anong pangalan ng line na to? Isulat nyo lang ang answer dito sa ano natin sa primer. Tapos ang sagot, titingnan ko kung maraming sagot na tama, iraraffle ko. Kung meron lang tatlo, so yung tatlong tatlong winners. Kasi the first prize is 1,000 pesos, second is 10 watch hours, and the third is 5 watch hours. Now for the second question, determine the total time traveled by the second train from the initial position when it has completely overtaken the first train. So yung second train, na-overtaken na niya ang first train. So nandoon na siya sa dulo. Ngayon, ang first train na dito. So, ang endpoint nila is the tail end, this one, the tail end of the second train and the front end of the first train. So, yun ang ending point nila. Therefore, ang distance ng D4, which is the first train, is still the same, 27.78 T, but we designate it as D4 because the what we call this one is already different. 27, the position is already different. 27.78 T, and the second train is 69.44 T. Therefore, from this diagram, you can see that at 800, this distance plus 120, which is the length of the car, plus D4 is equal to D3 minus the length of the car. Kasi hanggat dito lang sila eh. So, minus the length of the car, which is 100 meter. The length of the second car, which is 100 meter. Therefore, simplifying this one, time therefore is equal to 24.48 seconds. Yan ang sagot natin sa pangalawang question. Now, the third question, determine the time traveled by the first train from the initial position until both ends of the two trains abreast each other. That means, pareho na sila ng distance, ng position nila. So, ang second train, ang distance niya is from the original to the end point. And the second is from the 800 meter going to the end point. Therefore, from this diagram, we can see that 800 plus 120 plus the distance from here to here, which is D5, is equal to, from here to here, for the second train, from the initial to the end point, which is equal to D6. Therefore, substituting the value of D5 and D6, which is equal to 27.78 T, is equal to 69.44 T, the D6. T therefore is equal to 22.08 seconds. So dito, ang velocity nila, nag-solve tayo ng 3 problems, pero ang velocity nila is the same kasi pareho lang naman ang nila, ang takbo. Yun lang, nagkaano ang posisyon nila, nagkaiba-iba dito sa problem na to, iniiba-iba ang posisyon, kaya nagkaiba-iba ang distance nila. Pero ang velocity, the same pa rin ang ginagamit natin sa train 1 at saka train 2. Therefore, the answer for the third question is 22.08 seconds.
Sorry, it's DJ.